Hello, Charlie.
Yes.
Man, I see you got connected just fine, and your audio sounds great so far. That one word, yes, I think is it's all I need to hear, brother.
Well, I'm not quite familiar with the platform, but I'm an OG. I don't, video chats. What is that? What do I know?
I know, me too. This is great audio, but as long as you're comfortable, so am I. I mean, we do these Skype, cell phone, however it takes to get the best results, man. That's all that matters.
Okay, so what are we doing today, by the way?
We're going to do a feature interview for my show, Streets of Rock and Roll, which is, until your show comes along, my show is the number one program on KRFK until you knock me out of that number one slot here in about 3 weeks. And we're going to make the announcement for your premiere on KRFK on October 7th. I'm going to let you handle that. We're just going to do a bunch of hype and build up over the next 48 hours until the show premieres on Wednesday and kind of tease everybody to tune in because Charlie Kendall's got something to say. And then we'll just have a discussion about the program, the past, the present, and the future.
Oh, sounds like a full docket.
Absolutely. And it won't take long. I cut these down to 13 minutes for the radio broadcast, and then the entire unedited interview goes on the podcast version after the broadcast cycle in about a week or two. So I just really appreciate your time. We are consumed with Charlie Kendall and METALSHOP here at the office and the studio now. It's just in high gear until the premiere, and just really excited about this. Corey and I are in high gear, and I just can't thank you enough for coming on board and making this happen for us.
Hey, thanks for the offer. It's good to be wanted.
Hey.
And thank you, for honoring me with the pleasure of joining you on this venture.
We're privileged, and I just hope that we can satisfy all your wishes and desires to make this comeback as successful for you as it's going to be for us.
I'll do my best.
Okay, I'm going to kick this off. You're on the streets of rock and roll. I got the wheel and riding shotgun. This week is a true radio broadcast legend. An entire generation of metalheads like me grew up with the iconic buzzsaw that was and is the mother of all heavy metal radio shows, the legendary METALSHOP. My special guest, Charlie Kendall, hosted 586 METALSHOP programs that ran on over 250 radio stations from 1984 until 1995. Let's welcome the butcher himself, the founder and host of METALSHOP, Charlie Kendall. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well. How are you, Ron?
I am fantastic. Great to talk to you. It's an honor and a thrill, and we've got some big news to announce to the world today. We all want to hear it from you, so please tell us what's going on.
Well, this guy who was responsible for the audio sound effects that, buzzsaw that launched METALSHOP, well, he called me a couple of months ago and said, we want to bring back METALSHOP. And I'm like, well, I've thought about it for years, but and never really could find the right fit with people to make it happen. And it's you. So it's like full circle. We're going to do METALSHOP one more time.
Wow. And I am the man behind that buzzsaw. It was our song, Hot on Your Heels, which was the intro music and somewhat of theme song for METALSHOP. And it is an honor to come full circle with you. Brand new episodes of The Only Show with Teeth, launching October 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern on KRFK Radio, krfkradio.com, and on the free mobile app. Tell me about the process of this resurrection. You already mentioned that you got the call from me and my partner, Corey.
Well, Corey was an interesting thing because I was actually looking for copies of the show. I tried to buy the entire archive that was METALSHOP, all 586 shows. And I went to it's iHeartRadio that now owns what was MJI Broadcasting. And I said, I want to buy it all. I want to buy the rights to all of it. Because I was a player. I thought up the show, but I was hosting, I was running a radio station in New York City. So I wasn't like the principal putting it all together. That were the guys at MJI Broadcasting. I mean, one of my first producers was a guy named Mark Snyder, Dee Snyder's brother. And he produced me, and he wrote the show, and he did most of the interviews because I'm running the biggest rock radio station on the planet at the time. So I couldn't do all that. And it was just astounding that the show was so strong and then wimped out so bad because they tried to make it an alternative lean. And because all of the radio consultants were telling them that the word metal couldn't be in the show anymore. And I'm like, are you nuts? And I couldn't do anything about it. So I tried to buy all of the archives to do something with them, at least. I wasn't necessarily thinking about doing a whole new show, because then I didn't have the time. Now, I'm an OG. I'm an old gangster. I don't have the steam actually to do all of this. And then as Corey and I are trading old copies of it, because iHeartRadio threw all the old shows away. They were paying to store them. So they threw them all away because they didn't want to pay for the storage, all 586 shows. So they don't exist in their original master's form. And I started looking for things on YouTube. And as I'm just putting out the word, there's a METALSHOP website, which is not mine, but the guy, it's like a kind of a, just a METALSHOP devotees site.
Yeah, fan site. Yeah.
Yeah. And I put it on there, and Corey was one of the people called back and said, hey, I've got, about 100 shows. So we start trading them, and his are the best that I found anywhere. And we started talking back and forth and this and that. And here we are.
Yeah. The Corey that we're mentioning is Corey Harker, KRFK Radio Technical Manager and Program Director. He wears a lot of hats, and he is your biggest fan. He's producing these broadcasts, all new stuff. Writing them, producing them, putting them all together. This is his baby, and I'm just glad to be along for the ride. Our mission is to both recreate the magic of the glory years and combine those classic elements with some fresh content. What's new and different about Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop, and what elements of the show will remain the same?
That is a good question that only Corey can answer. The scripts that I've seen so far we're looking at the history of Metal Shop and a lot of things that were involved in putting that show together and some of the great moments. The first script that I've looked at is actually kind of a playback to the first Metal Shop from 1983, I believe it was. Or was it 1984? Corey can tell me. But it was the actual Metal Shop show 001, the very first one. And we had, who do we have on there?
I know. Don't give it away. Make sure everybody tunes in to KRFK Radio on October 7th to find out. I know who the guest was, and I've got the playlist already. I am super excited to debut Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop on KRFK October 7th. Your massive list of credits includes creating other shows as well, such as Country Today, Rock Today, hosting the first Rolling Stones farewell special on ABC Radio in 1989, when hard rock and metal were setting the world on fire back then in the 80s. What led to the creation of Metal Shop?
In 1982, I was working with a guy named David Krebs. David was a manager in the group Lieber Krebs. They were a management firm. They had Aerosmith, they had Ted Nugent, they had AC/DC, they had the Scorpions. He was big, and he said there really isn't a real hard rock show. And he and I had talked over the years, and he knew that. I mean, I was that kid, 14 years old, disc jockey, mid 60s, who liked Pushing Too Hard by the Seeds, who liked all of the loud stuff, who liked I'm a Man by the Yardbirds. Yeah, that hard rock is what I loved, and that continued all the way through my disc jockey years. And he said there needs to be a show. I was in Philadelphia at WMMR, and he said, "What can we do?" So I said, well, and I thought about it, and I came back and I said, how about we do a show just called From Hard Rock to Heavy Metal? And we did that show. Sammy Hagar, we got a hold of him, and he was our guest on the show. And I had another guy named Dan Carlisle actually host that show. We did that full hour demo, and nobody, I think it got on like 12, 15 stations. You know, it really didn't get on a lot of stuff. They ran it in front of some of Sammy's shows of the time in what markets he was playing on the station that was hosting the show. But that was about it. There was no interest in syndication. And I was always interested, but when I moved to New York, I said, damn it, I'm going to get a hard rock heavy metal show on if it kills somebody. And, you know, I went pitching the show. I pitched it to everybody, ABC, NBC, CBS, Westwood One, all of the big networks. None of them were interested. And we ran across Josh Feigenbaum at MJI Broadcasting. And Josh was, I don't know, Charlie. I mean, I said, first of all, you get New York at WNEW. That alone should, you know, tweak your interest. He said, it does, but I don't know if it has any legs. So one of the guy who was going to be producing it with me was a guy named John McGann. John's no longer with us. He's a sweetheart of a man. And I said, McGann, take him to this week's show with Judas Priest at the Garden at New York. Mm-hmm. And he did. And Josh was about 2-3 songs in, said, okay, I'm in. I got it. And that was it. We were off and running. And we were able to put it together. And it grew from, I think, 15 stations the first week to over 250 stations.
An instrumental part of that cultural revolution that happened in the early 80s. And I was right there with you, man. Everybody was telling us that we're digging our own grave, that this kind of music doesn't have legs. It's never going to get an audience. You're never going to get played on the radio. And then all of a sudden, Metal Shop on the radio and Headbangers Ball on MTV changed everybody's mind. And it was all of a sudden a $1 billion industry. With this new relaunch of Metal Shop, we're going to get the legion of listeners hungry to relive that era, but we're also going to reach a whole new generation of younger fans who never got to experience the 80s. When a 25-year-old asks you, Charlie, what was it like back in the day? What do you say to them?
I remember some of it. It was wonderful. I mean, for the most part, most of the hard rock, even metal shows were in clubs. You know, because they weren't playing the big halls yet. You know, the early 80s, that's the way it was. If you got to play a club, then, you know, you considered yourself lucky and fortunate that maybe you'd get a check and be able to eat that week. The bands had a hard time running. There were clubs in New York. There were clubs in Chicago. There were clubs in L.A. There wasn't a lot of others. Oh, Detroit. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to forget that. Detroit was a major hub because of the Stooges and MC5 and the other, you know, incredible bands that came out of that. And I'll even throw Alice Cooper into that mix. And it was incredible from the standpoint that when you walked into a room where a band was playing that was a hard rock band, the fans were there for the music. And there was no doubt about it. It was a camaraderie beyond all others. And I say that even to the mosh pit, you know, if you bloodied somebody's lip, it was okay. Because it's part of what was happening.
Wow.
And
yeah.
I loved it from the standpoint that it was such a communal thing. And you don't get a lot of that anymore. Although, you know, when I'm sitting here watching Taylor Swift shows and I'm going, holy shit. She's doing what we were doing with rock shows. But
that's a great analogy, man. The camaraderie and the communal aspect of metal in general, as it was when we started out 40 years ago. Now heavy metal music has changed and evolved in the past 4 decades. And now it includes countless subgenres and classifications. You got death metal and hair metal and doom metal, this metal, that metal. Charlie, what's your definition of metal?
I don't know if I necessarily have a definition of metal because I'm not sure it can be described. It can only be felt and experience.
That's a great answer. And I have my own classifications, the metallic guitars, thunderous drums, screaming vocals, and anthem choruses. And you're going to hear all that on Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop on KRFK Radio. We can't wait to hear this debut episode launching. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but it's safe to say we're going to have the best of both worlds. Some great memories from the glory days. As you mentioned, we're going to relive that very first debut episode mixed with new content, new music. We've got vintage interviews and some modern moments as well. You've joined forces with our company, RFK Media, to unleash an entire line of brand new Metal Shop merchandise bearing the Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop logo and brand. Everything from t-shirts to shot glasses and much more can be found online at rfkmediashop.com. Charlie, please visit the Metal Shop collection at rfkmediashop.com. The first round's on me.
Got yourself a deal.
Right on. I'm speaking with legendary radio icon Charlie Kendall, founder and host of Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop. New episodes premiering October 7th on KRFK Radio. Get all the details at krfkradio.com and follow on Facebook at KRFK Radio. Charlie, before, during, and after Metal Shop's original 11-year run, you've had a storybook career in broadcasting. Can you share some non-Metal Shop highlights with us?
Wow, there were so many. Live Aid. We were anchoring the coverage of Live Aid.
That's big time.
Doing the Rolling Stones press conference at JFK Stadium in 1980. ABC was supposed to be covering it, and they had the lock on everything. And the telephone company lost their lines. So they called and said, "Can you help us?" So I got, wireless equipment into JFK Stadium in Philly, and we took that equipment back to our studios, which were already wired, with the what they called the big fat telephone wires back in the day. And we were able to help them cover it, and we did it. And we have the actual, and it's still in the hallway at WMMR, of Mick Jagger wearing the WMMR cap as he's looking over the stage that they're going to play on. And that is a piece of history there.
Really?
I interviewed Keith Richards backstage at Shea Stadium. Me, him, and a bottle of Rebel Yell for an hour. And it was, talking to these guys is difficult because I'm starstruck. I'm a fan. And I did my best through the whole thing. As Keith and I finished the interview and the Stones are going out to play, at Shea Stadium, we finished the bottle of Rebel Yell. I get up there, it's pretty good seats, and I'm looking and I'm watching, and Keith is out, and they play for 3 hours. I barely made it through the show without passing out. I have no idea how he did it. And then, of course, I had to get on a train and go back to Philadelphia, so that was quite an experience.
Wow.
And there were so many other, it was nonstop, and I could never think about it, because I think I would have gotten scared. Otherwise, it was just being in the moment, doing what had to be done, and enjoying the ride. And I hope I can do that, for this show and for you and for this company and this partnership that we have. And I hope I don't have too many, I'll say it, Joe Biden moments. I'll do my best.
Man, I get the starstruck reference because I feel the same way right now. And whenever I interview my heroes, I've had some Hall of Famers on my show, and I still get starstruck. It's like the same feeling as an artist that I get right before I walk on stage, right before I hit record and hit the microphone. It's just like walking on stage for a gig. And to be on the radio, having you on my show, it really is full circle. I have in my treasured personal collection the actual vinyl pressing of my first appearance on Metal Shop from March 15th, 1985, really helped put my band, Keel, on the map. So to have you on my show today and then have you on our radio station debuting October 7th really is a dream come true for all of us.
Me too. You know, I mean, you and the music of that album, when they brought that to me and said, "Wait, have you heard this thing from Steeler?" And I'm going, "What thing?" You know, and they played it. Said, "Oh yeah, that's a great piece. That's a," and I said, "God, that could work. That could be great." And it was. It still is. Everyone that hears that sounder, that buzzsaw, and the Metal Shop, they know exactly what it was. It takes them back to when they were sitting in a parking lot listening to that show on a Friday night at midnight. And I hope we can do that again.
You will, and we will. Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop Weekly on KRFK Radio, debuting October 7th. Download the free mobile app. Listen online at KRFK Radio. We're also on the TuneIn Radio app and Odyssey. We're not hard to find. And Live the Rock on Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop Saturday nights starting October 7th. My special guest, the Butcher himself, Charlie Kendall, thanks so much for your immeasurable contribution to the heavy metal culture and for joining me on the air today and on KRFK Radio.
Thank you for having me.
The legendary Charlie Kendall, Metal Shop. Let's crank it up and keep it up. Well, that was excellent, my friend. I expected no less from the master himself. How cool is that?
I only got lost 2 or 3 times.
Man, I got tongue-tied once or twice, but I can edit this thing. And but it was just fantastic to get this thing rolling properly with the announcement on Wednesday. And I will send you everything over the next 48 hours, the links to the merch store. We're putting all that together now. T-shirts, hoodies, shot glasses, you name it. We're going to have a ton of items. And the press release, which will go out Wednesday via our radio promo people. And if there's anything else I can do to make this more fun and more profitable for all of us, you just let me know.
Hey, same here. I'll do whatever needs to be done.
Are you up for additional interviews like this? Because we can get you out there on some of the big outlets to promote this and talk about it. If you feel, and we won't get you on Joe's podcast or anything. We'll hit some big targets. But I know this is going to be big news on Thursday. Once this radio interview airs and the press release goes out, it's going to be front page news all over the internet.
Hey, I'm up for anything. I was surprised that that's what we're doing because I don't know.
Well, I am. I'm an
older guy. I'm 74, man.
Wow.
And I've been doing this since I was 14. So that's 60 years.
Yeah.
So when you say, were there any highlights during that time?
I know.
Fuck yeah, there were some highlights. Like 60 years worth of highlights.
Yeah, I know. And I get the
really
same questions.
Separate them.
It's one huge life. Our life is one huge highlight. We've lived the dream, and I'm 62 and very thankful that I've been able to do what I love to do my entire life and make a living, put the kids through college, and still to this day entertaining people and fulfilling that part of me that needs to create and entertain.
It's fabulous what you're doing. You're doing everything any person would love to do. You know, I mean, I had given up. I actually retired, and then I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, why am I retired? All I got to do is talk, you know. But I didn't want to be in radio anymore. I did not want to be a part of that. I don't understand what they're doing, and I don't want to be in it. And I had to get out of that. And then I did the podcast. I did a couple of sample podcasts of, and that's all part of how I ended up chatting with Corey, which, led me to you. And I think hopefully this will be the beginning of a wonderful friendship.
I believe it, and I'll do whatever I can to make that happen. And it starts right here and now with what we just did. This is a great audio announcement, and I can't wait for everybody to hear the news.
Fantastic.
All right, buddy. Great job. I'm going to edit this together and get it on the radio. I'll talk to you soon.
Happy splicing.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.